Hey YouTube, Kira Twig here, bringing you all my Flamvell Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck profile for post Hidden Arsenal Chapter 1. With the release of the Hidden Arsenal set, we were given a reprint for a lot of the different Flamvell cards that we have in the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG. Now this deck is definitely one of the lower tier Hidden Arsenal decks. It's really not that strong because just like the Ally of Justice deck, a lot of the support just didn't really mesh well together for combos that this deck was meant to do. It is a synchro based deck, and we only have a couple synchros for the Flamvells, and then they were definitely overlooked compared to some of the other fire decks we got, like Lavels, which just had much more consistent play styles for summoning out their monsters onto the field. But still, we had a little bit of support for the Flamvells back during Dark Neostorm, and with it we now have an update since a lot of the cards are more readily available thanks to the Hidden Arsenal Chapter 1. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So we'll go ahead and start off with the main deck monsters. For the Flamvell monsters, I'm running 3 Flamvell Fire Dog. One of the oldest Flamvell monsters, but still definitely one of the best to use. With this card, when it destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, you can special summon one fire monster with 200 or less defense from your deck, except for Flamvell Fire Dog. So this just gives you a resource for a good number of the different Flamvell monsters in the deck to summon out on the field to make use of. One of the easiest synchros to summon out is Flamvell Urquiza. With this one, with your summon, you then have options for some of the other tuners to get out some of the bigger synchros all together in the deck. And the newest Flamvell monster is Neo Flamvell Lady. Quick effect, you can send one fire monster from your hand to the graveyard, then target one card in your opponent's graveyard, banish that target. If a card is banished from your opponent's graveyard while you control this monster, except during the damage step, you can send one fire monster with 200 or less defense from your deck to the graveyard, except for Neo Flamvell Lady. You go and use each effect of Neo Flamvell Lady once per turn. So being able to set up those fire monsters in your graveyard can just give you an easy target to special summon back onto the field with cards like Rekindling, and then also being able to take resources away from your opponent in their own graveyard. Neo Flamvell Lady is a non-tuner level 4 monster, just giving you access to some of the other plays. We do run some Link monsters, but the Synchro monsters match very, very well with the level 2 tuners that we run in this deck, mostly for our Fire Synchro plays. For some of the other 3-ofs, one of the tuners that I run in the deck is Flamvell Guard. Now, this card is a dragon tuner, but with it we have some access to some easy synchros because Flamvell Guard is a normal monster, meaning we can special summon it from the deck to the field with cards like Unexpected Die, giving us just another resource to go into some Fire Link monsters on the field to then boost up our own fire monsters all together. And another one of the 3-ofs for the Flamvell monsters is Neo Flamvell Origin. I would say one of the best ones to send to the graveyard with our Neo Flamvell Lady, giving us another target for a 200 defense monster to special summon from the graveyard with Rekindling. But also, if you control a Flamvell monster except Neo Flamvell Origin, and your opponent has 3 or less cards in their graveyard, you can special summon this card from your hand. Now, this is the best used option when you go first and your opponent rarely has any monsters in their graveyard. You can just summon out your Neo Flamvell Lady or your Flamvell Fire Dog, and then just special summon Origins right then from your hand. You have the tuner needed to go into your Flamvell Urquiza, needing a tuner and a non-tuner monster, just with those 2 cards on the field. And I also run 2 Neo Flamvell Shaman. If this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, and you have 3 or more Flamvell monsters in your graveyard, target one card in your opponent's graveyard, banish it. Then if your opponent had no spell or traps in their graveyard when this effect was activated, inflict 500 damage to your opponent. Just another level 3 option monster to run in the deck for additional burn damage, but also being able to banish other cards from your opponent's graveyard. Being 1700 attack, it can go for a pretty powerful kick to your opponent, just like Flamvell Fire Dog having 1900 attack, and that's sadly mostly where the strength comes from for the Flamvell deck altogether in its attacks, which definitely are not a big part of the consistent Yu-Gi-Oh play, but the best we can do for some of the setup in this deck. For some added support for the Flamvell monsters, for the generic fire support, we're running 2 Barrier Statue of the Inferno. Just limiting your opponent's special summons for fire monsters only definitely does cut back to a few monsters that your opponent can even summon out onto the field. Fire is definitely one of the overlooked attributes that we run in Yu-Gi-Oh! So depending on the deck you're going up against, you can definitely stop a lot of plays just by summoning out this Barrier Statue, but still continuing with your own because a good majority of the extra deck that we run are fire monsters altogether. And for more special summoning from the hand, I also run 3 Red Resonator. When it's normal summon, you can special summon 1 level 4 or lower monster from your hand. And when this card is special summon, you can target one face-up monster on the field and gain life points equal to its attack. So it's another rekindling target, but also just being able to special summon Flamvell Lady or Fire Dog from your hand to the field and speed things up a little quicker, because Fire Dog has to destroy an opponent's monster. So if you go first, you at least have that play to use with your Red Resonator and your Flamvell monsters. And by setting up some in the graveyard, it gives us access to special summoning out our Inferno. It cannot be normal summon or set. It must first be special summoned from your hand by banishing 1 fire monster from your graveyard. If this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, inflict 1500 damage to your opponent. So the best way to make use of Inferno is to inflict that damage, but you do need to boost up its attack strength altogether. So cards like your Dual Chimera to power up its attack are the best way to go about that, because it is a lot more consistent to do so with 1600 attack than 1100 attack that this card has. But still, it's mostly here to act as a banished special summon resource to then get out some other extra deck monsters. That is it for the main deck monsters. We'll now move on to the spells. Definitely spoke about it enough in the video, but the best spell in the deck is Rekindling. You special summon from your graveyard as many fire monsters as possible with 200 defense, but banish them during the end phase of this turn. So with the targets we have for our fire monsters, we have Neo, Flamvell Shaman, Origins, and also Lady, and our Fire Dog. Sadly, Flamvell Guard is 2000 defense, so it doesn't make up for that play, but we have other ways to special summon it onto the field a lot more faster than some of the other cards. And I also run 3 Circle of the Fire King. It's a quick play spell. You target 1 fire monster you control and 1 fire monster in your graveyard. Destroy that monster, and if you do special summon that other monster from your graveyard, you can activate 1 Circle of the Fire Kings per turn. So even if your opponent does get around the barrier statue of the Inferno, you can at least destroy another fire monster on the field to special summon it right back onto the field from your graveyard, or just get another better fire monster. Let's say if you open up Neo Flamvell Origin, and then you can special summon Fire Dog back into the field, which can get over a lot more different monsters your opponent may have. For another one of the 3 ofs that I run for the spell, I also run 3 Unexpected Die. Just that resource summoning out Flamvell Guard is just very, very important as an extender on the field. So we run 3, so we have the 3 targets, and hopefully enough to reach out and summon out that monster onto the field for us to make use of. There's even an easy way to then summon out your Ancient Flamvell Deity, thanks to this play, which I'll go over at the end of the video. And for the 1-ofs for the spells, I run 1 Pot of Desires. We run plenty of play sets of cards that you need that draw power, especially in this Flamvell deck. So that's why I like to run this 1 card, along with 1 Monster Reborn and 1 Foolish Burial for more of the graveyard setup to special summon back into the field with cards like Rekindling. And that's it for the spells. Moving on to the traps. For the traps, I run 3 Flamvell Counter. You banish 1 fire monster from your graveyard with 200 defense to negate the activation of a spell or trap and destroy it. It's a counter trap, so you can get around the Solemn lineup with this card. I would definitely say it's one of the stronger Flamvell cards altogether, since there's really no restriction. If you have this card, even if you have no monsters on the field, as long as you have that monster with 200 defense in your graveyard, you can activate and stop a good number of cards your opponent may have. With the last of the traps just being 3 Blazing Mirror Force. I wanted to stick to the fire theme for this deck, but if you want to run cards like Infinite Impermanence or Solemn Strike, this could be another card to put in, just matching up with the different counter traps we're running along with Flamvell Counter using your own Solemn Strikes. And that is it for the main deck. We'll now move on to the extra deck. For the Flamvell monsters, I run 2 Ancient Flamvell Deity. You need 1 Fire Tuner and 1 non-tuner Pyro monster. With this card, if it's Synchro Summon, banish cards from your opponent's graveyard up to the number of cards in their hand. And if you do, this card gains 200 attack for each card banished. So you can hit some pretty high numbers if your opponent still hasn't basically used any of their hand resources, or was able to build up a hand late game and then get rid of the other graveyard resources they may need to rely on while powering up this card on the field. And 2 Flamvell Urquiza. This one, if it attacks defense monster, inflict piercing battle damage, and if it inflicts battle damage to your opponent, it gains 300 attack. So one of my favorite plays is to go from Urquiza to your Flamvell Deity using your Flamvell Guard and the monster you synchroed out, since Urquiza is pretty generic, just needing a tuner and a non-tuner. And I also run 1 Ally of Justice Cataster and 1 Crystron Amitrex. Now, I was going over how to build the extra deck, and I run these machine monsters for one of my more favorite fusion plays to use. With that play, relying also on the 1 Black Rose Dragon, the 1 Red Wyvern, 1 of the Borreload Savage Dragon, and 1 Vulcan the Divine for more of the generic fire plays, but still some good synchro monsters to also go into, especially with cards like Red Resonator. And for the Link monsters, I run one Dual Little Chimera for the fire boost, the Heat of the Fire Charmer, if your opponent does run, which I would say the only fire monster that you can make use of from their own graveyard, which is Ash Blossom. You'll happen a lot more often than not, and with Ash Blossom being a level 3 tuner, makes it so you can go into Ancient Flamvell Deity a lot more easier since it needs a fire tuner, and then you just use one of your level 4 pyro monsters to summon out your Ancient Flamvell Deity using your opponent's own Ash Blossom. And also one Link Karibo and the one Proxy F Magician. This is in here for the Fire Fusion play with the monster we go into being the Blaze Phoenix, the Burning Bombardment Bird, needing a machine type monster and a pyro monster. We have the pyro monsters in the main deck with the machine monsters being the cards I mentioned earlier in our extra deck to use. So for the combo with the Proxy F Magician, it comes down to setting up enough of the Flamvells, which can easily be done with cards like our Neo Flamvell Lady, and using this for that setup of other level 2 monsters in our graveyard. You can either send the one fire monster from your hand to the graveyard, so you just need the fire monsters along with the one unexpected die in your hand. So what you'll do is you will special summon out using unexpected die your Flamvell Guard onto the field. You will then normal summon your Flamvell Lady and also use the power of your Flamvell Lady to send one of the fire monsters from your hand to the graveyard. And with that, whether it is Neo Flamvell Shaman or Origin, you'll send the other card from your graveyard using this for that option for the send, to send one fire monster to the graveyard, and with it you'll have the two set up there. You will then go for your level 5 synchro play using Flamvell card and Neo Flamvell Lady. So with it you have your play to either summon out your Ally of Justice Catastor, and once you summon that, you can then activate the Rekindling play. So you will then activate that, special summoning back all which possible the 200 defense monsters onto the field for you to use once you summon them using your Rekindling. You can't summon Flamvell Guard, remember that. You have the other 3 monsters on the field to make use of. You will then summon out using the 2 other monsters, which this order could be done either way. You could have made the Proxy F Magician first, and then gone into Catastor as long as you use the right level 5s to summon it out, but then you'll summon out your Proxy F Magician, and using your Proxy F Magician to fuse the Pyro monster and the machine monster you have to then summon out your Blaze Phoenix of the Bombardment Bird, which during a main phase you can inflict 300 damage to your opponent for each card on the field. So if you went second, it does more burn damage if your opponent has more of a field to make use of. These special summon options also come in handy with the Red Resonator and one of your other level 4 monsters if you have Red Resonator, and the option for your Unexpected Die and the, let's say, Flamvell Fire Dog. For this one, you will use the same play with Unexpected Die to special summon out Flamvell Guard to the field, and then using Red Resonator to special summon the Fire Dog, you will then synchro for a level 6, which this level 6 can be your Rayquaza, and then using a Rayquaza and the Flamvell Guard you special summon, you can use those two to summon out the Ancient Flamvell Deity, or even if you wanted to go for more of a destruction play in the field, the Black Rose Dragon you run. But that is it. As for one of the last combo plays to remember with this deck, because it is one of the overlooked decks for the Yu-Gi-Oh! Hidden Arsenal story. It got a little bit of support, but even then it was more of a generic fire support and not really a true support for the Flamvell deck. It still helped the deck altogether, but I would say this deck definitely does need a little more support in the future to make it truly playable, or even just a whole rework of the deck with added support and maybe a few other cards needed for the deck to run all together. But the combos are fun. It's a fire deck that I've definitely overlooked on the channel, but definitely enjoyed making. And as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Twig out.